Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our monthly series on the USY Alumnet Mitzvah Hero uh, podcast webinar series. And we are very happy that this month we have a very unique Mitzvah Hero in that she doesn't really run an Amuta as a classic Amuta, a classic nonprofit, but rather she runs a foundation, a tzedakah fund that helps dozens of nonprofits, and we'd like to hear her story. So, hi, Danny Franks.
Hi, Arnie Draymond. Thank you for having
How
me.
are? My pleasure. How are you?
Okay, thank you.
That's good. So, we're going to start at the beginning, if you don't mind.
I can remember.
If you can remember, yes. Okay, it's not. I know your story. I can tell it. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in London, England.
Yes.
What else?
Oh, what neighborhood?
Oh, I
What
grew
kind
up in, I started life in Edgware and then moved to Radlett, and I went to JFS, which is the biggest Jewish school in Europe.
Right, and it's very common for most of the British Jews to send their kids to Jewish schools, even if they're not necessarily religious per se.
Right. Yes.
It's more of a cultural acceptance.
Yeah, they're also mostly free, which helps.
That's very good. In the States, the Jewish day schools, of course, cost a ton of money. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Great. So you had a relatively normal Jewish education, whatever that might mean for England. And tell us about your high school years. Anything stick out unique in the, particularly let's look at the tzedakah, social action, any volunteer work.
The biggest, well, the two things really was, one was that when I was 13, I don't know what grade that is in American, but I went on a trip to Israel for 5 months. So there were 27 of us 13-year-olds. And that is where my love of Israel began. So that's that bit of the story. And then tzedakah wise, I don't know. It was always part of my life and part of my consciousness, and doing various bits and pieces.
From your home, your parents, youth group?
I think from Cheder, and then at university, and I don't know, just it was all around, like it was a thing. I would say.
So you didn't shy away from it.
No.
Yeah, some people they're not into volunteering, right?
Well, I didn't really do. I did volunteering at university, but with prisoners actually, weirdly. But I didn't. I got involved in committees and stuff when I was older. When I was younger, it was mostly through Cheder. I remember doing the charity stuff and washing cars for charity and all sorts. Yeah.
Right. Great. So then in university, where did you go to university?
Bristol, which then didn't have that many Jews, and now I think is the #1 Jewish university in the UK. So it's tons of Jewish kids there now. Yeah.
Okay. What did you study there?
Psychology.
Psychology.
Yeah.
Okay. But while you were there, you said you did some volunteer work, or that was?
I did. I mean, I was head of the JSOC, which chairman of, which is the Jewish Society in each university has a Jewish society, of which I was chair for a while, and we did all kinds of stuff. And I also did a particular volunteer program with prisoners, visiting prisoners and looking after their families, which was quite an experience.
Jewish prisoners or in general?
No, I don't know how many of those there are. I'm sure there's some, but no, these were kind of pretty hardcore non-Jewish prisoners, which was pretty interesting. But I got, at that point, when I think just after university, I got very involved in Jewish Care, which is the largest domestic charity in the UK, looking after mostly elderly people. So I did lots of fundraising stuff for them. And then, I don't know, it's really a long time.
Right, so long ago. Were you working for the Jewish Care?
I did a 5-month student placement program with Jewish Care actually when I graduated. For a few months.
And then what other career paths did you embark on? What were you looking to do?
I was in marketing. I started off in a conference company, and then I moved to Sky Television, and then I moved to Disney before I came here.
Right. How was it at Sky?
It was wonderful.
Like, were you like, it was wonderful?
I'm a sports fan, and it's like the holy grail of sport. It was then anyway. Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And so you were just involved in the day-to-day nitty-gritty of marketing?
Yeah, marketing, promoting, getting more customers, keeping customers happy, all that stuff.
Okay. Then you were bought out, your contract was bought out by Disney, like they sought you out?
No, completely separate. Left Sky, went traveling, moved to Disney on a 3-month contract. They wanted to make it permanent at the point at which I had an epiphany and went, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move to Israel. That's basically what happened. So I gave a very, very lucrative deal, gig at Disney, and came to Israel.
Okay.
Everything changed.
Right, but you're happy. I know that.
I'm very happy.
So you move here, and you have an idea on the back burner that you seem to want to bring forward, and tell us about it.
Well, what actually happened was when I came to Israel, I thought I would immediately get a job at Disney because that's where I had been working when I moved. And so I went to Disney I thought it was an interview, but I realized that whereas in London there were 4,000 staff members, in Israel there were 4. And they don't let go of their positions because they're hired by an American company with great perks, and therefore that wasn't going to happen. And I wound up in a couple of different nonprofits here. But I met somebody very early on who you know, which is Karen Green, who always comes up in my story. And she talked to me about, on a weekend away, and she talked to me about nonprofits and a nonprofit that she had founded and the difficulties of fundraising and how they never know how they're going to make the year and all of those things. And when I asked her how much she raised in the UK, she told me nothing. And I asked her what she could do with £50, which in those days was 400 shekels, and today I'm very sad to say it's 200 shekels, but what could you do with 400 shekels? Yeah.
For the Americans, just so we know, so we're talking anywhere between could be $50 up to $100, $125, depending on the day.
American. And she told me, she reeled off this list of things that could be done with that relatively small amount of money, you know, winter coat for a kid on the street, 3 therapy sessions, social worker for X number of hours. And I just said, I didn't know you existed. And when I gave donations as a, student, as a young person, I never thought it made a difference. And if I'd known it had made a difference, I could have given more.
So I just say Karen was running a program called Crossroads, which is for English-speaking street youth in Israel. They still exist today. The annual budget hasn't changed very much in the last 15 years there. It's still it's under say about $600,000 a year total. It's not very high. So that donation of $100 placed in the right place can make a significant difference.
Right. And so I told her on the day I met her that I was going to help her, and I didn't really know what that meant. And it took me 3 years, and I worked in a couple of nonprofits here to formulate the idea of what I believed was the perfect, if there is such a thing, way to give tzedakah. And then when I had this great idea, I went to Karen Green 3 years later, and I called her up and I said, I'm ready now. And I told her about it. And I said, I'll obviously explain it in a minute. And I said, what do I do now? And she said, you need to speak to Arnie Draymond, which is how Arnie and I became acquainted 14 years ago. So this was the idea. There were a few things I wanted to fix that I thought were the weak links in the process of giving tzedakah. The first one is people need to feel that their donation has an impact. If they feel it has an impact, they will give again, they will give more, they will create opportunities, they will become bigger philanthropists. That's my belief. 2, when you make a donation to a charity, you really want to be as thorough as you are when you buy a pair of jeans or an electrical appliance for your home or something else. And that means knowing a little bit about the organizations you're supporting and whether they are efficient and whether they are honest and whether you actually know where your money is going to go and what difference it's going to make. And marrying, and then the third part for me was this whole group of mostly Jewish people in the UK that just weren't aware of anything that goes on in Israel behind the scenes. They come on holiday, like many Americans do, and they go to Herzliya and they go to Tel Aviv and they go to Jerusalem, and the restaurants are packed and life is so good that it's hard for them to even think about or imagine some of the things that are going on behind the scenes, like, around a third of kids living under the poverty line, all kinds of issues that exist here, and people didn't know about them. So I also wanted to bring those issues to the forefront of British Jewish people in the main, and then give them a really easy way that they could give charity to Israel. So what did I do with Arnie's help in the beginning? Well, still, but definitely in the beginning. I found 18 different non-profits, small ones, relatively small ones, with annual budget of less than, back then it was probably 3 or 4 million shekels, 1.2 million dollars, something like that. Did I do that?
Yeah,
right?
Relatively about $1 million or less a year.
Right. And we did a very, very thorough due diligence process to check that these guys were transparent and efficient, or at least aiming towards efficiency. That we would know where the funds were used, how they were used, and that they would give us feedback, which we could then send to our donors in order to show them the impact that they were making. We wanted to have a range of organizations that would appeal to people of all different passions. So if you want to make a donation for your mum's birthday and your mum's into music, there'll be an organization that has something with music. If you have a nephew who has autism and you want to do something that supports children with autism, we will have a project that works with children with autism. And that way, the idea is that you can really, really make your giving personal. And so that's what we did. And the one bit that we added, which was my last bit of what I thought was the perfect way to give to DACA, which is the hardest bit for me, is that we made 100% promise, which means that every single penny, dollar, shekel that is donated goes directly to the non-profits that the donor chooses to support. And because we raise funds separately for our running costs. So we go out to individual donors and we ask them to support our operation. And that way we can make sure that the $50, the £50, 50 shekels, all goes to where it should go, rather than taking a bit off it to support our operation.
Terrific. Wow. And 14 years later now, how's it going?
Well, I mean, it's still going, and I suppose that's the most important. That's the most important thing. Listen, we've had some really big challenges. I mean, first of all, the pound dropping by 50% what we launched, it was 8 shekels to £1. So someone gave £100 and we had 800 shekels to distribute to our organizations. And now that is literally, today it would be about 416 shekels. So obviously that's very problematic, as also the prices obviously have been going up in Israel. So those two things together are a big challenge, but we have reached a lot of people in the UK. And I think the people that understand our concept, a lot of them really fall in love with it because it's quite pure, and it is quite pure. And so their kids get involved, and then we get kind of repeat donations, and we get children doing bar mitzvah projects, and we get someone recommending us to their shul, and we do appeals. Obviously we had to get through Corona, which was a challenge for all nonprofits, but actually it worked out very well for us because we met some great people that set up funds specifically for Corona relief and assistance. And so we distributed about, $800,000 worth of food vouchers across many of our organizations, because that was really one of the most immediate needs for people that were out of work. And we've raised probably about £9.5 million. I mean, I don't know, you want to do the conversion. What is that? No, more, 10, 11, $12 million, something like that.
Yeah, in 14 years.
Since we started, we've given out a lot of money. We've helped a lot of people. And we also do mentoring, which is the bit that I love the most, actually, which is when we kind of help them get better at the business side of what they do.
Let's come back to the mentoring in a minute. On the raising funds side, on the donation side, how many people do you think could you list as donors if you started from the beginning to today? You have hundreds of people
at every single level. We've got thousands. Yeah. we'll definitely.
1,000.
Yeah.
And you have a lot of repeat donors.
Yeah.
You have large donors and small donors. You mentioned bar and bat mitzvah kids, who I assume, although we know that in the States as well, that some bar and bat mitzvah kids rake in a lot of money for their projects, right? For themselves and for their projects.
So an average bar mitzvah project, which is mostly when they do a fundraising activity. So most of them are doing some kind of fundraising challenge, as opposed to donating part of their bar mitzvah money, and then some kids do 10%, which is worth less to us financially, and also it reaches less people. But of course, we love it when they do that, because I think that's the first thing of adulthood, is I'm giving some of what my wealth, I'm giving some of it away. Right. And that's really the message we want to teach throughout, our lives. So I think it's a beautiful, beautiful thing for kids to do, even though it's less lucrative for our projects. Obviously, it creates less money, but an average fundraising challenge is probably worth about £1,000–1,200, so probably about $1,400–1,500. And they'll reach 30 or 40 people in doing that, who will hear about MyIsrael, and some of them will then do their own fundraising challenges for our organizations.
Yes. So you just mentioned the name. You named the program MyIsrael.
MyIsrael. Yes.
You had mentioned that before. How did you come up with the name? The simple name.
Do you know what? Funnily enough, I don't know. I know I came up with it, and I don't know. But I must say, since we launched, if I may say, and I'm not suggesting for a minute that we were the excuse me, I need to charge my computer. I'm not suggesting that we were the catalyst, but there are an awful lot of things in the UK anyway. My this, my fund, my something else. We were first. Thank you very much.
Okay, good to know.
Yes.
Okay, so and you're still you're not only the founder, but you're the CEO, the head of MyIsrael.
Yeah.
Okay, and you mentioned that in addition to getting funders across the board throughout England, large and small alike, you have taken to heart a lot of the nonprofits that you support locally here in Israel.
Correct.
And so by taking it to heart, it includes not only giving them money, but it's sort of like you come along with the package, you and your staff, your team.
So, well, first of all, I just want to say that we also now are a registered nonprofit in Israel, and we raise funds here. And we also do have channels to raise funds in America and Australia, just so I put it out there.
Good.
Yeah, so I wasn't part of the model in the beginning, but I realized quite early on that a lot of our organizations are set up by what you taught me to call them, and I believe are the mitzvah heroes. And these are basically people who saw a problem and had an idea of how they could at least be part of the solution, if not fix it. But a lot of those people, with all their wonderful ideas and abilities to help the group they're working with, aren't business people. And so a lot of them don't have some very basic skills to make them operate efficiently. For example, the lady who gave me a budget in a Word document, and when I asked her, what should I do with it? She looked blankly, and I said, but I want to check your numbers. She said, okay. And I said, well, how do I do that? And she said, with a calculator, like I was, and I said, have you ever heard of Excel? And she kind of goes, I think so. And so I did a 2-hour session with her on Excel. And you can imagine you probably can't remember. I can't remember the first time I saw what happens when you click on that cell and it adds up the column, but it was like a light bulb came on. And she said, all the organizations and people that have helped me along the way hadn't pinpointed this issue as something that I was weak in. So we do that. We find out where they need help. Sometimes it's teaching them how to make a video for social media. Sometimes it is teaching them how to write a thank you letter, all kinds of different things. And it's for each one, it's different. Some need more, some need less.
Right. And it's very hard to put a value on the mentoring that goes on with what you do to the nonprofit, but and I certainly know how valuable it really is. Can you? Do you have to put a number on it?
We put a number on it. We put a number on it in terms of our time. So we work out how much of our budget is spent on mentoring and project support. In terms of value, I couldn't put a number on it. I mean, sometimes it's literally we did something and they raised X amount more, but more often than not, it is less direct than that. Sometimes they'll just say, I cannot tell you what it means. I can pick up the phone and ask you a question when I'm not sure about something. Now, I don't know how to value that, but I can tell you that being a founder and being a CEO is lonely sometimes. You're no one else is in your position, and having someone that you can call and just seek counsel on is extremely valuable. And other times it's that we've taught them how to. We've saved some disasters. Letters that were going, thank you letters going out to major donors. They didn't write the name properly, and the letter was just a standard, nothing personal in it at all. And teaching them the importance of writing a real letter. Now, how much does that over time? How much does that help them? I don't know. Does it help them? Yes, absolutely. So no, I can't really put a value on it.
Amazing. And you mentioned you choose 18. Your model is to choose 18 nonprofits that you highlight. And these 18 are the same 18 for the last 14 years?
So it's 18 at the moment, based on, obviously it's high, which is lovely, but more importantly, it's manageable for us, the size of team that we have, that we can give them the attention they need. We rotate them. I wouldn't say we rotate them. We don't have a fixed term, but over time, we see that some are doing really well. Some are able to get donations from the UK. They don't really need us anymore. Some of them close along the way. Sometimes we discover something we're not very happy with and we stop supporting them. Very rarely, but it has happened. And sometimes we just want to bring a fresh organization in, so that we're mixing things up, so that we're offering our donors a choice. But we always keep what we call our graduate organizations on our website. So if somebody does want to support one of the amazing organizations, we're not punishing them for being successful. They can still support them. We'll be absolutely happy to recommend them.
Great. And you mentioned briefly about being able to take donations from other countries, but in particular, you started an Israel launch. Is it 2 years already?
Yeah, it was the month before. February 2020 was our launch event. We did that because there was two reasons, actually. One is because there's a very big you'd need a whole podcast on its own about the cultural difference between the way Israelis relate to tzedakah and the way that those of us from the diaspora do. The way we were raised, the way we do it, it's completely different. And there's also a lot of mistrust in Israel about the charitable organizations. People have various perceptions about how things are done. And so I thought, well, hang on a minute, why don't we just show them the MyIsrael way and then give them an opportunity to give to organizations through us, then they can have a bit of peace of mind. And the truth is, there's also a massive Anglo community here, which we can access very easily, who are in a mindset of giving, but actually also aren't giving at the level they would have been giving overseas when they live back there. Even taking the financial changes into account, pro rata, they're still not giving because the opportunities aren't presenting themselves. So we wanted to become that, and we are doing that. It's slow, but it's growing, and we're reaching quite a lot of the Anglo-Israeli community here, but there's way more we can do. And second of all, I noticed more and more with my UK donors, them saying, well, we love Israel and we're happy to support Israel, but what are the Israelis doing? They're making, loads of money and they're doing really well. And I kind of thought, it's true. Like, I don't want to say it was embarrassing, but I did feel like I need to show that the corporations here are giving, and I need to show that the people that are in a position to be able to give are also giving and supporting. So we launched here, and I think it's going pretty well. I don't know how to quantify it yet because it's still very new and we've only basically existed in Corona. So things have changed a bit. So we need we need next year, although we said that last year, but we need next year to see how the land lies. But we are definitely, committed to doing things in Israel too.
And as a founder and CEO, tell us, if you care to share, like a frustration you might have, something you'd like help solving, that somebody who's listening to this could help you with in some fashion?
Um,
And
well,
and then on the flip side, like some positive stuff that you've gone through.
there's lots of things that we don't. I mean, today my latest thing is accountancy, a financial controller, help with finance stuff, because that's like a thing that I don't have and we need it, and I don't really want to pay huge amounts for it. So I have to kind of solve that bit. I always want to hear new ideas, new thoughts, new anything. As I said, it's a bit lonely sometimes being in my position, and I know lots of other founders feel like that. And I know there are various networking groups for that reason, but I always feel like non-profit stuff, it's a little bit different to a lot of the things that go on in the commercial world. So it's not necessarily like. And sometimes you just get disappointed because people don't go for what you're offering them, and you just don't get it, and you kind of go, why would that be? On the flip side, well, I've met incredible people along the way. Sometimes things happen that, a kid gives us pocket money and you just think, oh my God, I love that. It's so amazing. It can be $5 equivalent, but it doesn't matter because he did it and he chose to give something to that, and it just completely warms your heart. Or someone will come back that you haven't seen or heard of for 10 years, and they'll suddenly say, oh, I thought of you today because I don't know what, and then the relationship will be established again. Or I meet great people like you. I mean, you've been with us. No, really, you've been, I'm not sure how it would have got off the ground without you. You've been my mentor and my support, and there's never a particularly long period that goes by that I'm not calling you, like our will talk call us, because everybody needs to have someone at the end of the phone that they can call and just talk. Usually with you, I think we just talk stuff out, because sometimes I'm just trying to work it out and I need someone who gets it, that can just hear me and feedback, and then I'm usually very happy and off I go, and I know what to do. And there are a lot of really, and also the one thing I would say about my line of work is that people ask me all the time, don't you find it really depressing? Isn't it just awful because you hear these terrible stories and you meet these people in so much distress? And it is, on the one hand, but being part of the solution is amazing. I mean, Ellie, who's my project person, coordinator, very well, she's the one who gets to call them up and go, oh, by the way, you can go and buy that, whatever, because we just raised the money for you. And she just, that's amazing. It's an amazing gift to be able to do that. And so that is what keeps you going through any frustrations and hardships. You kind of got to keep your eye on the end game, and the end game is to make people's lives a lot easier and help people break negative cycles.
Yeah, I tell people I think I have one of the best jobs in the world. So it's just being part of the solution is just terrific. In addition, you get to meet these great people, the people who founded and run the nonprofit here. You've met them all. You know how inspiring they are, how truly wonderful they can be, and can make it in their own little way. They make a huge difference. And I always have to remind them, because they don't see it always, but they're saving lives.
Yeah,
they're not necessarily right. They're not necessarily doctors or ambulance drivers or rescuing, right?
Definitely.
But they're saving lives.
Yeah, definitely save lives. And then the last bit of that for me is that I get to connect them with these donors in the UK or Israel, and then a love affair can form, which is like the last bit, which is really special and really lovely, and a privilege to be part of that.
Terrific. Anything you want to add? Anybody have any questions? Anybody live that was listening for Danni and the wonderful program of MyIsrael that she's created and still running to this day? Great.
Danni, I just want to say I looked at your website for the first time when Arnie sent out the information on it. I was really impressed. It was very cool seeing the cards and all that you could get. It's too bad that they can't go to the States, but
wow.
Let
me just say, we can do for the States is certificates. So we do still do the Hanukkah. Should I just explain? Have I got time, Arnie, to explain what the Hanukkah thing is?
For you, of course.
So 6 or 7 years ago, a girlfriend of mine called me up and said, what do you have for Hanukkah? My kids are spoiled and they get so much stuff. Do you have something charitable? Long story short, we created a program where parents and grandparents mainly donate gifts in the name of their loved ones. So for example, I've got one here from last year, which says, we've squeezed a tin of dog food into this card. And when you open it, it says, seriously, Yoni, who's my son, Grandma and Grandpa didn't actually magic a tin of dog food into this card, but they have been super thoughtful this Hanukkah and donated food for a therapy animal in your name to help families in Israel. So because of you, animals and children who have had difficult things happen to them can come together to create a better future. And the idea is that on one night of Hanukkah, instead of having material gifts, they get a card and they get told about the donation. And you can do that in America, but you will get a certificate instead of a card. And if you go to our website, myisraelcharity.org, you will be able to find out all about it.
Terrific.
Great.
Thank you for mentioning it very much, Robin. Good opportunity. And thank you for looking at the website, because it's the window. Our website is the window to what we do. And we try and make it as clear as we can so that people understand how things work.
Great.
What are you knitting, Robin? What are you, crocheting?
Robin is a master crocheter.
No, I don't crochet. I'm knitting a hat.
Wow.
Hanukkah present. This is what we do.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Okay, thank you, Danni, for your time. I appreciate it. I know you're busy, and you should live and be well and healthy and happy for 120 years, and you should continue doing all of the great, wonderful tzedakah work that you've started.
I will do my best. Amen. Thanks, Danni. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
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 Bye.